Thanks for joining us again. A few housekeeping items. So we are not going to be turning on the chat feature. So if you have any questions for Dasani throughout the time being, please go to slido.com and input #buds. And I believe that the link to Slido was sent also by Grace prior to this meeting. So you can use that link, or if you didn't receive it, just head to slido.com, enter #buds, and you'll be able to add your questions in and vote for top questions that you see. And now I'll pass it on to Joseph.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so as same as before, we really want to encourage you guys to take notes during the event. And also with those takeaways that you've learned, post on LinkedIn afterwards, tag us, tag the Product Buzz team, tag the page, and tag Dasani. And we'll make sure to go on those and like and comment as well. And it'll be a great way to get your word around and get more people to notice about Product Buds. And also, recording of this event will be available online on the YouTube channel. And so even if you feel like you're missing something or you need to go somewhere for real quick, don't worry, you can always come back and check it out when you at the YouTube channel.
I also want to quickly add something. Feel free to turn on your mic and camera as well if you have any questions for Dasani later on.
Fantastic. So we'll start off with Product Buds team introductions. I'll go first. So thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Grace and I'm one of the co-founders of the Product Buds community. We are so excited to have you, and I'll just share a little about myself. I'm currently a product manager intern at Salesforce, previously product manager co-op at GE. Currently also a rising senior at Northeastern University, majoring in marketing, minoring in CS, and I'm really passionate about product management. So I'm really excited to see you all here. Now I'll pass it to Henrika for her introduction as well.
Hey everyone, I am Henrika. I recently graduated from University of Victoria with a degree in business, and I am an incoming product manager at Poly. Now I'll pass it over to David.
What's up, y'all? My name is David. I am currently a project manager at General Atomics, and I'm a rising fourth year at Georgia Tech studying industrial engineering with a concentration in analytics and data science. Well, nice to meet y'all, and I'll pass it off to Joseph.
Hey everyone, my name is Joseph. I'm currently interning as a PM intern at a small tech startup all the way in India, and I'm in charge of all growth LinkedIn efforts for Product Buds. Thanks for tuning in.
And I believe Darsh is in the room as well. Darsh, you want to introduce yourself? Yeah.
Hey everyone, my name is Darsh and I'm an incoming APM at UPS in their Advanced Technology Group. And I've been part of Product Buds as Director of Product Studies, which we'll be launching soon, and we'll debunk interesting products soon. Hope, happy to have you all here.
Fantastic. Thank you to my awesome team. Milop couldn't be here today, but he sends his well wishes to everyone. So in terms of the mission and vision of Product Buds, I'm sure you all know, but for people who are new to the community, since we launched Product Buds on May 20th, we are at over 800 members globally, and we have so many members from so many diverse backgrounds and unique skills, passions, and really different amazing accomplishments. But the thing that really unites us all is that we're all aspiring product managers who want to become PMs eventually. And so our team hopes that through Product Buds, we'll provide you all with a space to make lasting connections with other people who have the same career goals as yourself, and be able to allow you to take the proactive steps needed to become a great future product manager. So with that being said, I'll now pass it to Dasani, who is our amazing speaker today. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll let her make her introduction.
Hey everyone, my name is Dasani, and I am currently a program manager at Microsoft. And I'm so excited to talk to you all and answer all your questions. And I really wish that I was a part of community like this when I was like in college, which was not that long ago, it's just a year ago, but I remember it was so confusing to navigate and figure out all of these things. So I'm glad to meet all of you and see what you end up doing. So I did make a slide. Should I share it now or later?
Yes, you can go right ahead. I'm going to make you a co-host so that you can share your screen.
Okay. All right, let me see. Okay, let me know if you can see my screen. Okay, awesome. So yeah, hello. So I really also like doodling and drawing, so I try to work that into things that I do. So this is a doodle, and thought it would be a fun way to introduce myself. Let me figure out how to. Oops. Yeah. So a little bit about me. I just last year graduated at Case Western Reserve University, which is the school in Ohio. I studied computer science and minored in math and philosophy, which is super fun. And the great thing about being a student is that you get to do so many different jobs and try out different things and learn about all these different things, and you get to do it for a short period of time, and then you can transition to something else. So it's just a fun time to like try out and figure out what your interests are. So my first job, and probably the hardest job I've ever had, was being an RA, a resident assistant at Case. But I loved it, and it was my favorite job ever. And then I was an engineering practicum intern at Google, and so that's basically being a developer, but it's like designed for freshmen and sophomores, and the expectations are a little more chill. Shortly after, the summer after that, I was a program management intern at Microsoft, and then I interned at Khan Academy as a software engineer again. And yeah, now I work at Microsoft full-time. I work in the business applications group, specifically work on this product called Dynamics for supply chain management, which is a product that helps enterprises and companies manage their supply chain, keep track of inventory and all of these things. And so I had to learn a bunch of business finance terms that I'd never heard of before. So that was fun. But yeah, that's little background and history about me and my very short career so far. So yeah, I'll hand it off to you, and I'm going to let you guys ask your questions.
Thank you so much. That was a great introduction. I love the doodle, and I just think it's so creative. I got to see a few little things that I've seen that were really unique. And so thank you to everyone for being here, and thank you for the people who submitted questions early through the Google form. We took a few of those questions out to ask you, Dasani. And so the first part is kind of structured. There'll be three parts, kind of getting to know you, career advice, and then company advice. So the first question in getting to know you is, and this is from Navia, and what is your favorite part of being a product manager?
Yeah, I love that question. So the cool thing about being a product manager, and kind of the reason I decided to go into that role, is that I just have so many interests, and I love doing so many different things. And I guess I'm a pretty indecisive person. So product management was like, it just seemed like a great fit, because you get to look at so many different perspectives every day, and your day kind of looks different based on who you're talking to and what you're focused on. So that was I feel like it's a fun way for you to learn so many different career paths and interact with so many different people. And maybe someday I'll narrow down into a specific area, but for now it's just a great way to try out different things, figure out what you like.
I love that. And I love how you got to focus on the fun aspect as well. And this question is from Sarah. And I guess this kind of, since you're also a new grad and you're still just around the same age as us, what was your most useful college class for your current role?
Ooh, so I actually think my philosophy classes were the most relevant, because philosophy in general, makes you think about the why, and it's basically the study of how thought processes, right? So and I think that's super important for a program manager, because you're always trying to figure out people's perspectives, what's your why, and like really narrow down like what the most important thing is. And philosophy kind of helps you train yourself to do that. Yeah.
I think that's a question that I think a lot of people should hear, because a lot of people expect would probably expect a techno class, but it's great how you spun the philosophy class as a core fundamental to what is really important for you. And so those are the two questions in the kind of get to know you section. So now we'll move into the career advice section. And this question is for Luis, is how do you get into PM roles right after graduating?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I get it a lot. For me, it just I wasn't actually like actively trying to become a program manager. It kind of happened. So I don't know if my personal experience would be great, but I think that definitely showcasing. So I think the most important, especially as a new grad for program management, they're not really expecting you to have know all the jargon per se, so I think that's okay. But what I've seen most people look for is have that sort of drive, and are you able to take an idea and implement it? And that doesn't, so a lot of people are like, do a side project or whatever, but and that's great advice, and I think that's one way of going about it. But anything that you do where you've like shown drive and shown that you can take an idea and bring it to life, whether that's organizing an event or creating an actual product, those are just like really great ways to show that. And for me, even though I wasn't actively looking to be and if you can do an internship, definitely do an internship. But for me, like what I was doing, how I kind of got into it was because even though I had a tech background, I was really active in college, and I cared a lot about education. So I started an after school program. And that was just something I was passionate about, and passionate enough to be driven and like see it come to life. And so a recruiter reached out to me because of that. They're like, oh, you have a tech background, but you've also like shown that you can do this and bring things to life. So that's any way you can highlight that in your resume and LinkedIn would be a great way to get in. And yeah.
Yeah, I love that answer. It's definitely, it's like people always think about like specific things and like they want to follow a roadmap, but I think it's about the very holistic sense, kind of like I mentioned. I guess you almost kind of actually touched on it, but Navi asked a question, is what kind of experience or skills should we have for a successful career as a product manager or a program manager?
Yeah, so the cool thing about program management is that because you work with you get to work with different people every day, you don't have to have a certain background. Like I have a tech background, but I work with people who had like more business backgrounds and like a marketing background, and then I even like met this one person who used to be a marine biologist and now is like a program manager. So whatever your background is, don't feel like you have to check certain boxes. You like the most important thing is like being able to get excited and being able to, your willingness to just learn on the job and see things come to life. So yeah.
That's perfect. That feeds right into the same point you made about kind of having that drive and passion. So you also touched on this slightly. You said kind of having a desire to build and desire to create. This question is from Mega. She asks, what kind of hobby project should one build for a PM role? And it doesn't have to be exact project, or maybe you can even talk about the education role the education impact that you had.
Yeah, I get that question a lot, and I also get it in different contexts. Like a lot of people I know who are in high school are often like, what side project should I have? And it's I think what's important there is not to do a certain project, but just take anything that you're excited about. And for me, it was education and bringing that to life. But when you're excited about something and you really care about something, you automatically get drive, and you automatically feel the need to do something and collaborate and bring people together to solve a problem. So yeah, don't worry about trying to check a certain box, because like I remember when I was doing like the career search the very first time, I was like, oh, maybe I need to like build a side project or like, put stuff on GitHub and show that I can code. But I none of that stuff was like exciting to me and interesting to me, and it didn't really get the results I wanted. So it's a lot more easier to be authentic, and when you're authentic, that shows. So think about what you're excited about and find ways to really make change with those passions that you have.
Yes, I love that. I mean, if anyone can go slap that kind of clapping emoji that you see react, just give Dasani a clap for that, because I love those. I love those kind of answers, because it's what you love doing. It's not what you want. You don't have to follow people to get like a good result. You should do what you love, and if it shows, then that's the best thing that you can do. So yeah, that was kind of wrapping up our career advice section, and now we'll kind of move into the company advice. And this question is from Sarah. She asks, how did you make your application stand out when you're applying to Microsoft?
Yeah, that's a great question. So full disclosure, every job I've gotten like rejected 4 or 5 times before at least. So like if you've gotten rejected, and I didn't even change, like for Microsoft, I actually got like rejected 2 weeks before I had a recruiter reach out to me and was like, are you interested in like applying for this job? So, and obviously none of my experience changed. Nothing I did changed. Everything I had was the same. So, yeah, so don't get too disheartened if your application is like getting rejected or falling through the cracks, because like big companies just, you know, they get a lot of applications, and I've even had friends who were like in the middle of interview process and suddenly like, I don't know, the system lost all their data, and then they were just, you know, very persistent and like found the right people to bother and got their application go through. But I think the most important thing is like, these things can be a little random, but you can improve your chances by just like trying very often, and also like networking. So I think those things are way more important than what you put in your resume. But yeah, I think do the research for your role, look people up on LinkedIn, and see what kind of previous experience they've had, and try to see what commonalities your experience has with what they've showcased. And then, you know, you don't have to fake anything or change your experience. It's just about how you present it and how you tailor it. So I remember when I was applying to Google the very first time, I was like, okay, I found the right role for me, because I was like, okay, I'm not experienced. So I found that there's this like engineering practicum application, and then I like found a bunch of people who did that, and then I saw that a lot of them had like TA backgrounds, and I was like, I really like teaching, so I had tutoring and other experience, so I put that in. I like volunteering, so I put that in and showcased some of my projects. So and then I like bothered a bunch of recruiters, and then timing is also everything. So the first year around, I didn't realize that you have to, like, applications started in the fall. So then I waited until like 1 month before the summer and realized everything was like closed up. So yeah, timing matters. And like just even after you've applied, if you haven't gotten a response, you can still bother people and see what's going on, and try to, yeah, just do what you can. And it takes a lot of tries and a lot of, you know, even if you have the perfect application, you can, it's not your fault. So don't take it personally, but yeah, just, you know, if you keep shooting your shot, eventually something's going to work out. Yeah.
I love that. It's like you're a living success story for persistence, and also kind of understanding how the process works. And that's amazing to hear. And so now that you are a part of Microsoft and that you've been able to communicate and work with many program managers and product managers throughout the company, what do you think is the number one thing that Microsoft looks for in future PMs in general?
Yeah, that's a great question. I haven't done any interviews or something, so I don't know exactly what they're looking for, but you know, I know, like, especially when you're a new grad, the biggest thing they're looking for, obviously they want to know if you have like the skills that you say you have, but it's a lot of, are you willing to like learn on the job? Are you like a good person to work with and collaborate with? And then there's ways you can show that in an interview. Like if you get stuck on a question, do you have like a collaborative mindset, or are you like asking the right kinds of questions? Which is why I think philosophy is important, because it really helps you ask the right types of questions. But Yeah, I think that's really what they're looking for, especially when you're a new grad. It's just like, okay, are you willing to learn? Because like the job I have right now, I didn't have a business background. I didn't even know what the hell a supply chain was, but I work in that space and I was able to learn it and still provide value. So I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah.
Yes, that's awesome. But yeah, that's great to hear. I think actually that wraps up all of the questions we got from the Google form. And so now, Henrika, if we could switch over to the Slido link where, thank you. Yeah, so here's kind of our audience submitted questions, Dasani, just kind of giving you some context, where it's kind of people get to get the thumbs up on questions that they like. And for those of us and those of y'all in the room who are not have not wanted to ask questions, but haven't been able to ask questions, join us at the link or use the QR code. And yeah, we'll start it off. I think this first question from Anonymous, and this kind of speaks to your experience, is I only have SWE internships on my resume so far. How can I build a more PM orientated resume?
Oh yeah, that's a great question, especially because I have a SWE background. And so I think that even in your SWE internships, if you are doing one now, or regardless of what role you're in, if you're interested in being a PM, try to ask for those like more PM type tasks. And you know, PMs are so busy, I'm sure they'll be happy to give you work if you ask for it. And then if you're in a job right now, that's a really great way to kind of build that. If you're working at a smaller company, depending on the culture, sometimes you can just kind of make your own project. I did that in when I was at Khan Academy. I was like, I had this idea and I was like, oh, this is something I want to do. And they just kind of let me do it on my own time. So those are some great ways where even though your title is SWE, you can still be a PM. And so I think that's a really great way. And another great way is like your extracurriculars and just highlighting those skills. Like for me, it was doing after school programs. And I also like talked about my TA experience because that's really a good way to show that you know how to teach people. And I always like talk a lot about my experiences being an RA too, because then that your job there is literally like learning how to deal with conflicts and all of that. And so that always shows that you're able to like work with different kinds of people and handle stressful like interpersonal situations. So if you have any of that experience, and most people do, especially if you're interested in PMing, I'm sure you do, I would just highlight those in your resume, in your conversations, and that will show and take you where you want to be.
Love that answer. Moving on to a question from, so I don't know if you'll be able to answer this question. It is the most upvoted one. What do Microsoft recruiters look for while recruiting for entry-level PMs?
Yeah, again, like I don't know exactly what recruiters are looking for, but I do know they don't necessarily have a certain major or any of that in mind. Because I've just met so many entry-level PMs from really, really different backgrounds and different majors and all of that. So I don't think there's like a specific skill set, but I do know like when a recruiter reached out to me and asked me if I would be interested, the things she highlighted were very much like she was looking for someone who knew some technical stuff, but was also like has shown a history of like working well and collaborating with people. So anything that you have that highlights that would be really helpful. And in my case, it was technical skills because I was a CS major, but if you're a different major, you would just have to highlight that you know those skills for your areas. Yeah, I think that's what will help you stand out.
I think that's a great answer. I think it actually hits right on the point because you just came from that kind of cycle, like not even maybe just a year ago. So I think your experience is probably quite representative of at least the average experience. So moving on, we have another question kind of talking about what do you feel was the most important thing that prepared you most for the job you have right now?
Oh, yeah. Well, definitely my internships helped me prepare a lot because that really gave me a feel for like what it's like to actually work in an industry, and how to deal with like different personalities and different meetings. I think a lot of my extracurricular efforts definitely helped me prepare for the job a lot more, because what you do as a PM is basically you're trying to work with different people and help them agree on something and help them move something forward. And you do that a lot when you're working, when you're doing like these extracurricular things, because you're trying to like get people's time, you're trying to help them agree on something, and you're just trying to get something to move forward. So yeah, that's been helpful. And in any circumstance I've been in where I've had to just learn on the job and learn something really quickly has been more helpful than any class I've taken.
Yeah, that hands-on experience is a lot more important than people think. So it's great that you're able to highlight that. And I know you've touched on this before, and you also said you've experienced it by working with people who do come from non-technical backgrounds. Kiwal asks, is the technical knowledge necessary to become a PM in FANG, or obviously it means in reference to big tech? If yes, to what level?
Well, so if you say you have any sorts of technical knowledge and if you have a CS background, they will expect you to be able to answer those more technical questions. And even if you don't have a technical background, since you want to be a PM in a technical company, having knowledge of those products is important, just even a little bit. But especially when you're like completely a new grad and you're coming out of undergrad, they don't necessarily expect you to know all of the jargon. And if your background is not CS, and if you have a different background, I think they're going to be testing you on that more than if you're able to like code something. So yeah, and then also like if you have an MBA or you're like have a more niche degree, then they might ask you to know some more technical things. I doubt, if you're not from a technical background, I doubt they'll ask you to code something on the spot, but they might ask you about a certain product or a certain process. So yeah, but I don't know if I'm the best person to answer that question, because I have a pretty technical background, so I was expected to know and do like a coding interview.
Yep, no worries. I think you hit a lot of the points that I think people would be interested in knowing about. So yeah, the next question comes from Darsh. He asks, what advice would you have for PM resumes? And you touched upon this briefly, but if you have like a fun like a top 5 tips or something that you go by.
Yeah, totally. So in my resume, I had a whole like separate section for leadership. I wasn't actively looking for a PM role, but even in my normal tech roles, it was, even for a SWE role, I found it helpful to have like a separate section for that. So I would definitely have some sort of section that highlights that specifically, yeah, call out any sorts of like leadership stuff that you've done, and anything that shows that and leadership can mean different things, like you work together on a project, hackathon, or you organized an event like this one, build a community, any of that. So I would just have a separate section that highlights those skills.
Yeah, leadership is important, because I think also, I guess if you also have that experience where people think that product managers have like a managerial role, but instead it's more of a product ownership role. So getting to have that leadership highlights a lot of the skills necessary for later on to get people on board. So yeah, I think that answers the question perfectly. And this one, I love the way they phrased it. And if you also want to talk about your experience, how do you bother recruiters in a good way to let them take interest in you to respond?
Oh yeah, I love this question. Okay, recruiters are super busy and they get so many emails and messages, so they'll get too disheartened if you're not getting responses. One thing I'll mention is, okay, if you're going to apply for a job, or if you want to talk to a recruiter, first look at what teams they're recruiting for, because some recruiters are just focused on like hiring more senior people, or they're hiring specific, you know, people for a specific role. And then there's some recruiters who are completely focused on new grads. So I'd take some time to like look at their LinkedIn or look at their profile and figure out what exactly they're recruiting for, so that way you can kind of narrow down. And in your message, you know, mention what job specifically you're interested in, and get that information as well. And it always helps if you have an introduction. So if you have a friend that works at your at a company that you really want to work at, or if you know someone who works at a company you really want to work at, ask them for a recruiter contact. And recruiters are way more likely to respond if you've been introduced to them beforehand. And it's so that's way more effective. And also a lot of schools have recruiters like assigned to them. So try to find out who that recruiter is, if you have one for your schools. Some schools don't, like at the time when I was applying, my school didn't. Now later they got one, but at that time they didn't. So I wasn't able to go that route. But having introductions to a recruiter really, really helped.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that you also kind of added a little bit of a, how do you message them? And talking about the other side of the coin now, what kind of networking advice do you have for students still in college? Like, how would they reach out to current employees? And you could even kind of give an example of how you'd want people who are attending this call to contact you after this meeting.
Yeah, this is great. I used to struggle with this a lot. And, you know, sometimes you might have a networking experience and it might not go well, but that's not a testament to your ability per se. Sometimes you vibe with people and sometimes you just don't. So if you've had bad networking experiences, don't take it too personally. You're not bad at talking to people. It's just hard to find people you resonate with. For people reaching out to me, and also people reaching out in general, like if you want to reach out to someone, always look for something that you have in common. That always helps. So, you know, if someone's from alumni at your school or worked on something similar that you're passionate about, that always helps. And then when you're networking, something that is a bit of a turnoff for me is when someone just reaches out to me and they're like, you know, it's not personal at all. It's just like, you know, tell me how to get this job, or like, refer me to this thing. And I'm like, okay, I've never met you. I don't even know who you are. And you're already like asking for something from me that takes a lot of my time and energy. And, you know, that entitlement kind of just immediately puts me off. I always respond better when someone's done a little bit of their homework. So if they're like, oh, I read something that you wrote and it helped me, or like I read something you wrote and I have follow-up questions, that means like, hey, like they saw the work that I already put out for everyone to see, and they took the time to like engage and already like do that work, and then they're asking me. So that always makes me feel more inclined to have a further conversation, because it shows that, like, you know, they're not feeling just completely entitled to your time. So yeah.
Absolutely. And just for a plug for everyone out there, Dasani has an amazing Medium where you can kind of read and get to have that inside look into how she operates day to day and kind of how she writes. And I love the way she writes. I've gotten to personally read it, and I remember she plugged inside her channel once. So definitely give that a read. It'll give you a heads up. It'll give you a leg up when contacting her. And sorry, Dasani, I just want to give that to you to kind of plug that.
Yes.
So this question is quite interesting. I think it kind of gives people kind of a sense of what people plan to do after PM. What do you see yourself doing after being a PM at Microsoft? And some examples they gave at VC, business school, going to a high growth startup, etc.
Oh, this is fun. Yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of different interests, like I've mentioned before. A part of me wants to go to like art school or something, and then I was pre-law in college, so sometimes I'm like, maybe I should go to law school. And I loved being in college. I loved school. And so I definitely want to find my way back to school. Maybe that's studying like doing research again and like doing some more sort of like technical, more technical stuff. And maybe do like a master's in computer science, but we'll see. You know, life is long and there's so many things you can do. So it doesn't have to be one thing. But I actually, none of those things on that list though. I don't think I want to go into venture capital or business school, maybe a startup, but I also never thought I would work on in tech. I applied as a dance major, even though I'm a terrible dancer, and I thought I was, you know, going to law school and stuff. I did not want to be a tech major, CS major when I started out, and I liked the classes and ended up there. So yeah, gonna keep an open mind and see where life takes me.
Yeah, no, that is seriously inspirational. I think for if there's anyone in there who's either very early in their college career or still exploring, it's like, I feel like what you just said is like spot on. It's like, it doesn't have to, like what you decide to do initially doesn't have to be the end result. And I think you're living proof of that. I guess this might be a fun way to kind of touch on your more content creator side. As a program manager at Microsoft, what skills do you use on a day-to-day? So maybe like a day in the life with technical, soft skills, maybe even something that maybe like a fun fact that we might not know.
Yeah. Also to add on to the previous question, like, yeah, college is like totally just your time to explore and figure out your interests. So like, you know, take different classes and yeah, it's easy to get tunnel vision, but like I really only in my senior year did I take like random classes. I took like a jewelry making class, and I took this like other design class, and I was like, wow, there's just so many of these other interests I have that I didn't explore. So yeah, just take your time to like do something different and explore these different things, because yeah, that's what college is for. And if you want to take a class later, sometimes it's a lot more expensive. So don't be afraid to just explore and go out of your comfort zone. But yeah, I'll answer this day in the life. So what skills do I use? So recently, it can be pretty different, but I think the most important skill is just like that ability to learn on the go, and that's kind of also why it helps to have like an open mind, because you have to do so many different things. Some skills that really help me is just being able to follow up, set meetings and get people talking to each other. So like that sort of community building that I did was really helpful. And most recently, I have to write a lot of documentation. So like writing blogs, like that sort of skill was helpful, because you know, you're thinking about the other person and how they would want to learn something. So breaking that down and writing documentation, that's been helpful. And I had to create a video, and if any of you like are video makers, like props to you. I struggled so much to record a video. It took me like 3 hours to make this like 5-minute video without any sound. So it can be different, but I think the biggest stuff is just learning on the go and yeah, building community.
Yeah, thank you for that. Something I was wondering is, how is your technical interview for PM different from SWE?
Oh yeah, it's pretty different. My technical interview was your typical, you know, cracking the coding interview type questions, where you're trying to like solve a very technical problem and code it out. So yeah, I had to like remember all my algorithms and write it out and have that conversation. I felt like my PM interview was a lot more interpersonal. I had a lot more behavioral type questions, and I also got asked a lot of those like normal product questions. They're like, how would you build this? One of the questions I got was like, how would you design a kitchen for your grandma? And a lot of it was just asking those like I think the commonality between PM and SWE is you still, at the beginning, you have to do a lot to clarify the question. So you're like, you're trying to learn those like boundaries and constraints and who you're making it for and what the purpose is. And so asking those clarifying questions was important for both, but the interviews itself were pretty different. I did in my PM interviews, like one of the rounds, because I had a technical background, they just completely asked me, it was just like a software engineering interview, but the rest of my rounds were very behavioral, and also like they asked me like to design a product and see how I'd go about doing it.
Gotcha. So that's that's a pretty good mix. It's definitely, I think that hits on the question right. So Darsh asked a great question. He asks, when you have a new grad PM interview, what aspects should you focus on while doing mock interviews?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I haven't done too many PM interviews again, but always like being prepared for those like behavioral questions, and that's always really important, I think, for PM. I think I was asked multiple times, like, how do you deal with conflict? How do you deal with stuff when you disagree with someone? So having those in handy is really helpful. And then you'll probably get asked about like a project you did and how you approached it. So having all of those examples in handy and being able to articulate those well is super, super important. So I definitely recommend doing that sort of preparation. And then if you've read Cracking the PM Interview, that was the only thing I really used to prepare. So I found that, like, just reading through that was more than helpful. I haven't gotten a lot of those questions that they highlight where it's like, oh, figure out how to estimate something, like, and there's a whole section, if you've read Cracking the PM Interview, where it just talks about how to estimate stuff. And I remember spending a lot of time on it, but I've never gotten asked any question that's kind of related to that. So I would just focus more on like the more product type things, and I think they're really looking for like the kind of follow-up questions you have to clarify and figure out who you're really building for. So I think I would just focus on doing those sorts of questions. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. I think we're actually reading Cracking the PM Interview as a community in our book club. So
that's
getting
awesome.
to have that discussion based learning is really helpful, and it's opening my mind, because I thought I knew a little bit of tech industry. I know nothing. And this is a very interesting question. This is, how do non-technical majors learn how to speak the language of developers and engineers as PMs? And what do they need to know without necessarily being a coder?
Oh, this is cool. Yeah, I definitely think that for me, that I've always found that to be a strength, but I work with a lot of PMs who don't have a technical background at all. And like my manager, for instance, doesn't have a technical background. But I think what really helps is, well, you'll definitely need to learn some of those like key terms, and what helps is, just have like a one-on-one with your developer to just learn what's important to them. And I think that goes a long way, because it just feels like, oh, you took the effort to like get to know me and get to know my issues and my concerns. So I think that goes a long way. And being able to speak the language, like the jargon, it's so confusing. Even if you are a developer, it takes you a while to like pick that up. So I think that if you don't have that right off the bat, it's okay. You can learn that as you go. And if you can find an engineer to help you explain some of the basics and what they wish you knew, that's usually the best way. Just like talk to them and figure out what they would like you to know. And yeah, I think that there isn't like a specific thing you can do beyond that. But yeah, get to know your people. That always pays off.
Yeah, getting to know your people is also, you get to make great friends and you get to learn a little bit more. It's a win-win situation for all. And this question is Hassan. I think this is kind of picking up on your experience kind of coming into college as pre-law, or being in college as pre-law. Could you expand on what exactly you would do as a lawyer?
I just want to add on to that just a little bit. So I kind of looked into, like, I just graduated as well, so I'm looking into different grad programs and whatnot. And the only kind of opportunity that I really thought about would be like people like a patent lawyer. Like, so I have a computer science degree, so I thought the only like avenue that I would be able to pursue would be like, patent law or something like that. Could you just like tell me if that's true, or is that not true?
I know, yeah, I've also heard that before. It's like, okay, if you want to stay in tech and be a lawyer, like patent law is one way. We do have like corporate lawyers at Microsoft, because everything that we develop has like a licensing terms and conditions and all of these other things that lawyers very closely work with other people to develop. And as a part of my job, I work with a lawyer too, and she's not a patent lawyer. I think she just studied corporate law. But if I were to go to law school, I don't even know if I would necessarily stay in tech. I think I would just totally do something different. And I don't know, maybe do like criminal law or something. But I've recently gotten really interested in ethics and the role it plays in tech, and that kind of, I've always really enjoyed philosophy. So I think at Microsoft, we recently started a subsection of the company that's dedicated to like responsible AI. So it's not necessarily, I don't think I'd need to go to law school for that, but I'd love to like learn more about that intersection. So I think that might be something that I would study.
Awesome, thank you, Dasani.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I'll kind of end this Slido part before we move into kind of like a community Q&A, where I think hopefully you're okay with it, where people can just turn on their videos, turn on their mics, and just be able to speak with you candidly. This question was really interesting to me because I think this is something we're all interested in. How do you think the PM field will be affected after the pandemic and by the rise of remote work in general? Would recruiters be looking for new skills?
Oh yeah, that's cool. So for me, especially at like a big company, you're already working globally. Like most of my team is actually based in Denmark. So I was already doing a lot of remote work, and our customers are all based across the world. So you're still doing a lot of remote work. So when you're in tech, I think it doesn't affect you too much because you're already working with so many people across the world. Yeah, I feel like it personally didn't affect me too much. I do know some people who, were mostly working locally and with their team. There was some differences in the way they collaborated and came together. But I don't think it'll be affected. I think with the rise of like remote work, I think that just brings more opportunity to people, because a lot of the times there's so many communities and people who just don't necessarily want to relocate to the West Coast or move to the US. So I think with the rise of remote work, opportunities are just getting opened up to more people across the world. So I think that's probably going to be for the better, because when you work with people from different cultures and different places, you just make better stuff.
Yeah, that's a great positive spin on such strange times that we're all going through, but yeah, I think this is kind of the conclusion of the Slido, kind of the structured portion. And we're hoping, if you're okay for the next like 5 to 7 minutes, you'd be okay with just kind of having open conversation with members of our community.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I encourage everyone to just turn on your videos, turn on your mics. If we have a way to turn on the tile mode, let's do that. But yeah, feel free to answer your questions. I saw a lot of great questions in the queue. I just wasn't able to get to them just yet. So feel free to ask them now.
Okay, I'll go first. Hey, Dasani.
Hey.
Hi. So I don't have much of a question. I'm just like, first of all, I'd just say thank you for coming on here and giving us a chance to ask you questions. It's pretty bewildering for us to just start out there and go into a field that we just started. Like for most of us, I know this is a common experience for a lot of people that I know. They just started looking into PMing like 2 months ago, and it's just like, what do I do? How do I apply for this? Like where do I even get into this field? How do I even get into this field? So thank you for that. Secondly, my question is that as someone, who's worked across different internships, you've done like SWE internships and had SWE positions as well. How exactly do you translate those technical aspects? Because so just to give you an idea of what I'm trying to talk about, you go into a lot of meetings, right, where like they're like non-technical stakeholders. How do you break it down for them? Because as I understand it, the most important job of a product manager, and this is something that you've touched on a lot in the past few minutes, it's communication, right? You need to get your point across very like succinctly and very aptly. So how do you break down technical concepts for them in a way that they understand, yet they don't it's not like they don't feel like they're being talked down to, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something, I'm still learning and trying to figure out. I've like definitely messed it up and like, over explained something and the whole conversation went in the wrong direction and all of that. So it'll happen and it's okay if it does. But something that helps is like definitely if it's someone you interact with on a regular basis, I would definitely recommend just like ahead of time, like at some point just blocking their calendar for like a half hour, getting to know them, because that really clears the air. And I've had situations where I was like, oh, I feel like we're not getting along, so I just have scheduled time with them, and then afterwards we just work so much better because we're like, okay, now we know each other, and we both realize we're both good people, and that definitely helps. And it also helps you understand their perspective and what they know, because I've had some circumstances where I thought someone was just like they had like a more business role, but so I just assumed they didn't know like the tech stuff. But then later when I talked to them, I realized, oh, they used to be a developer, so they know all of these things, and I don't really need to explain that to them. So that definitely helps. But yeah, I think in situations where it's like a totally non-technical person and you want to break something down for them, I guess it's figuring out what you really want the outcome of your meeting to be. So if you want them to approve something, just figure out, like I have to do a lot of like compliance reviews. So it's if I'm like talking to like a lawyer to get like this legal review off, like what does she care about? And she mostly cares about like what I'm referencing in terms of our terms and conditions. So if I can get all of that information prepared for her and just show her what she cares about, then things go a lot smoother. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. And also to your former point, yeah, program management is such a weird field because it's so expansive and it can mean so many different things. And I know some PMs, all they do is like create videos, and then some PMs, all they do is like talk to customers. And then I'm like a product PM, so I'm like shipping out features. So the role can be so different, and there's not a lot of information out there to figure out. So this community is so great because of that, because you have each other and you get to like meet all these people and learn more about the different kinds of roles you want to do. So it is tough to navigate, but yeah, you're already in a great place to start figuring that out. And yeah, I hope that you all get the kind of jobs that you really want to do.
Awesome, thank you. Just remind what you just said, like make it relevant to them, right? Like make their job easier, and just get their whatever is a hassle for them, just get it out of the way so they can improve what you need to.
Yeah, totally.
I can go.
Yeah, awesome.
Hi, thanks for taking the time out to speak to us. Really appreciate it. You spoke a little bit about how you took some like philosophy classes, and those are what kind of helped you during your interview process, like ask the right kind of questions. And I've taken a couple ethics classes and like technology and ethics classes, and I've seen like a similar pattern. But I was just kind of curious how you apply like what you've learned in those non-technical philosophy classes like to your day-to-day.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And I love that you're like taking ethics classes, and I want to learn more about tech ethics. So if you have resources, like message me later. I'd love to learn from you. But yeah, I think like the biggest thing that always stood out to me in like one of my classes was my professor. I was writing this like essay, and my professor would always just be like, okay, like this. One of the things that stood out to me is like, this term, like in this article, like doesn't mean the same as the word in this other article. It doesn't mean the same thing. So like try to figure out what it really means. And then, so I kind of use that concept a lot, if that makes sense, like figuring out, like, just because someone says something, it doesn't really mean what you think it means. And I use that, I think that's helped me a lot. And then just like really asking people to clarify stuff. I think I've gotten really annoying about it to a certain extent, to be like, okay, like, you said this word, like, what do you actually mean by it? And I think that philosophy just really taught me the value in like clarifying those sorts of things. And even one of like, you know, what the question that I got when they were like, oh, like, design a kitchen for your grandma, and I was like, I remember one of the first questions I asked is like, do you mean a kitchen for my grandma, who's like an old Indian woman who, you know, lives with like 10 other people, or do you mean like, you know, your grandma who, I don't know? And she was like, oh yeah, like, I mean like someone who's like maybe living in Hawaii and lives on her own. I was like, okay, that's a totally different situation. And so like just asking those like clarifying questions and questioning fundamental assumptions is really what like ethics and philosophy have taught me.
Great, thank you. That's actually really important. I hadn't even thought about like diving so deep into it, like something like with your own grandma or like someone else's, but that's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have time for one more question. Hopefully that's okay with you, Dasani. Is that okay with you? Yeah, we have one more question if anyone wants to go.
Hi, Dasani, this is Roja.
Hey.
Yeah, I just have like one question. So for like whatever you had done with the product management, what do you feel like was the toughest thing that you have done? Like you felt, oh my God, this was the challenging thing that I have ever done in your whole product management journey.
Oh, like, do you mean in my job right now or in general?
Yeah, in job, for the product.
Job. Yeah, for sure. So I definitely think like when I first started this job, everything was so new to me, and everyone I worked with had like my I didn't have a team per se. It was just me and my manager, and my manager had been there for like, you know, 20-30 years with the company, and then a few other people in sister teams. Like all the PMs I met were, you know, way more experienced than me, and I was just like one person who just came in out of nowhere, did not even know what the hell this product was or any of like that space. So I think that was the hardest part, because I just didn't realize what the purpose of me being there was and what value I could bring. So it was I feel like, and the other challenging part about like work was versus like school is that in school you kind of have grades, and then that's just like an easy metric for you to measure how well you're doing. When I was starting out, and in the first couple months, I had no idea, no bar to see if I was like totally failing at this job or whether I was like, you know, meeting expectations or not, and there was just no way to kind of get that sense. So I think that was really challenging. And now that I've been here for a while, I know like that my perspective adds value, and I know that I've done a lot of things differently that have brought some really meaningful impact to my team. But when I was just starting, I had no idea what I'd be doing and how I'd be bringing that value, and that can really put you in a spot where you become very unconfident and unsure of yourself. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you. That was very informative. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dasani. Just kind of wrapping it up, how would you like people to contact you moving forward? What are some things you'd like to plug? What are some some ways that people can contact you?
Yeah, so I did have a slide for this, I think. Oh, yes, I did. Okay, so I have a couple of social media stuff where you can reach out to me. Let me share. Okay, let me put, yeah, so you can reach out to me. My handle is like Dasani_decoded on any of these platforms. And I usually am pretty good at responding to stuff. Yeah, just be nice and decent about it, and I'll get back to you. Yeah, I don't do referrals, so just as a head up, don't ask me for a referral, because yeah, I only do it for people that I've actually worked with and vouched for. So that's that, but I'm happy to answer any questions. just to make things scalable, I usually write a lot in my blog. So there's a lot of like tips for interviewing, creating your resume, and like my time is like a PM. And if there's something you really want to see me write or have ideas for, just have other questions that you feel like aren't answered there, or you just want to get to know me, feel free to reach out, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. And I do, yeah, I feel like I've touched upon this a few times, but yeah, like don't get too disheartened if you get rejections, if you've had like, you know, everyone can like work wherever they want, even if it doesn't seem like it, even if it seems daunting. Like just you know, be persistent, and you know, you're going to get your fair share of rejections. And I have so many like terrible interview stories that I can tell you where I fell flat on my face and had someone like walk out in the middle because they thought I was like not fit for the job. So that happens all the time. It's okay, and you'll be able to get back on your feet and do the job. Yeah.
Guys, from personal experience, Dasani is very helpful, so feel free to contact her. But it also depends on the questions you ask. Smarter the question, smarter the reply will be.
Oh, thanks.
There it is. That's such a great answer. So yeah, thank you, Dasani. Thank you for plugging your social medias and also your professional connections. And just as a reminder to everyone else before we end, please take what you've learned, spread it to the community around you, send your connections, get noticed. And if you want us to help comment, to just provide insight, show us what you've learned, tag us, the @ProductBuds on LinkedIn, and also use the #ProductBuds, and also subscribe to our YouTube so you can share the video and all the knowledge and the words of wisdom that Dasani has shared with us today all over. So yeah, thank you, Dasani, like from the bottom of our hearts, and thank you everyone else for coming.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I'm super excited to get to know you all.
Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Dasani. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Grace put this together so quickly and did such a great job. So shout out to Grace.
Clap reactions for Dasani.
Sure.
For sure. All right, everyone, have a great rest of your Friday, and see you on the Product Buds Slack community.
It's the weekend. Yay.
Hey.
Thanks, everyone.